The twin suns of Krella cast a sickly orange glow over the once verdant plains, now reduced to cracked, barren earth. In the capital city of Zorin, the last of the Krell people hurried towards the massive evacuation ships that loomed against the hazy sky. Their large, multifaceted eyes reflected the fear and sorrow that permeated the air. Supreme Leader Vix Anna stood on the command deck of the flagship, the Starbringer, her iridescent scales shimmering with anxiety. She watched as the final groups of her people boarded the vessels, each carrying with them only what they could fit in a single pack, the last remnants of a dying world. Supreme Leader, a voice chirped behind her. Vix Anna turned to see her chief science officer, Zeal, approaching. The younger Krell's antennae twitched nervously. The final evacuees are aboard. We're ready to depart. Vix Anna nodded solemnly. Very well. Signal the fleet. It's time. As Zeal relayed the orders, Vix Anna allowed herself one last look at the world that had been home to the Krell for millennia. The once great cities were now empty shells, slowly being reclaimed by the toxic atmosphere that had forced this exodus. A tear formed in her compound eye, but she blinked it away. There was no time for sentiment now. The engines of the massive ships roared to life, drowning out the mournful keening of the millions of Krell aboard. Slowly, ponderously, the fleet of a dozen city ships rose into the turbulent skies of Krella. As they breached the upper atmosphere, the last tendrils of toxic gas swirled in their wake, a final, poisonous farewell from their dying homeworld. Once safely in orbit, Vix Anna addressed her people through the ship-wide communication system. Her voice, usually melodious and soothing, now carried the weight of their species' fate. My fellow Krell, she began, her antennae drooping slightly. Today marks the end of one chapter in our history, but also the beginning of another. We leave behind the world that nurtured us, shaped us, and made us who we are. But we carry with us the spirit of Krella, the wisdom of our ancestors, and the hope for our future. She paused, allowing her words to sink in. The ship was eerily quiet, save for the low hum of the engines. Our journey will be long and fraught with danger. We do not know what awaits us in the vast expanse of space, but I promise you this, we will find a new home. The Krell will survive. We will thrive again. As she finished her speech, a collective murmur of agreement rippled through the ship. It wasn't jubilation. The wound of leaving their home was too fresh for that. But it was acceptance. It was hope. Zeal approached Vix Anna again, this time with a holographic display of their planned route. Supreme Leader, we've charted a course through the Celestial Veil Nebula. It should provide us with cover and resources for the first leg of our journey. Vix Anna studied the map, her compound eyes taking in every detail. Very good, Zeal. How long until we reach the nebula's edge? At our current speed, approximately 3 solar cycles, Zeal replied. Vix Anna nodded. Then we have work to do. Assemble the council. We need to establish protocols for rationing, education, and maintaining our cultural heritage. This ship must become more than a vessel. It must be our civilization. As the Krell fleet pushed deeper into space, leaving behind the fading light of their binary suns, the real challenges began. The city ships, while marvels of Krell engineering, were never meant for long-term space travel. Systems strained under the constant use, and resources, despite careful rationing, began to dwindle faster than anticipated. Months turned into years. The Celestial Veil Nebula, once a beautiful sight that had inspired hope, now felt like a cloying fog that slowed their progress. Young Krell, born aboard the ships, grew up never knowing the feel of solid ground beneath their feet or the warmth of natural sunlight on their scales. Vix Anna found herself spending more and more time in the ship's arboretum, a vast chamber where they cultivated plants from Krella. It was here, surrounded by the familiar scents and sounds of home, that she grappled with the weight of her decisions. Supreme Leader, a small voice interrupted her reverie. She turned to see a young Krell, barely out of her larval stage, staring up at her with wide, curious eyes. Yes, little one. Vix Anna replied, her tone gentler than it had been in years. Is it true that the plants here are from the old world? The one in the stories? Vix Anna felt a pang in her heart. Yes, child. These are from Krella, our ancestral home. The young Krell's antennae wiggled with excitement. Will our new home have plants like these? I hope so, Vix Anna said, realizing she couldn't bring herself to make promises she wasn't sure she could keep. The encounter left Vix Anna shaken. She realized that an entire generation of Krell was growing up without any connection to their homeworld beyond stories and simulations. The preservation of their culture, their very identity as a species, was at stake. That night, she called an emergency meeting of the council. We need to adjust our course, she announced, her tone brooking no argument. The celestial veil has sustained us, but it's also trapping us. We must venture into open space, seek out new star systems. We must find a home before we lose ourselves. The council chamber erupted into chittering debate. Some argued for caution, for the safety of the known. Others supported Vix Anna, recognizing the slow decay that had begun to set in among their people. In the end, Vix Anna's will prevailed. The Krell fleet altered course, pushing out of the nebula and into the unknown depths of space. It was a risk, exposing themselves to whatever dangers lurked in the cosmic dark, but it was a risk they had to take. As the last wisps of the celestial veil faded behind them, Vix Anna stood on the observation deck, her gaze fixed on the star-studded expanse before them. Somewhere out there was the future of the Krell people. She only hoped they would find it before it was too late. Little did Vix Anna know that fate was about to intervene in a way none of the Krell could have imagined. For in the vast, supposedly empty region of space they now entered, another civilization was about to cross their path, a species known as humanity. First contact. The alarm klaxons aboard the Starbringer shattered the usual hum of ship operations, startling Vix Anna from her meditation. She rushed to the command center, her iridescent scales shimmering under the pulsing red emergency lights. Report, she demanded as she entered. Zeal, now visibly aged from their years of travel, turned to her with a mix of fear and excitement in his compound eyes. Supreme Leader, we've detected an artificial structure in nearby space. It's not of Krell origin. Vix Anna's antennae twitched in shock. After years of empty space, the prospect of encountering another spacefaring race was both thrilling and terrifying. Show me, she ordered. A holographic display flickered to life, revealing a massive wheel-like structure slowly rotating in the void. Unlike the organic, flowing designs of Krell architecture, this construct was all sharp angles and gleaming metal. We're receiving a transmission, one of the communication officers announced, her voice quavering. Vix Anna steeled herself. Put it through. The holographic display shifted, and suddenly they were face to face with an alien creature. It had pale, hairless skin, small eyes, and a protruding nasal structure. When it spoke, its mouth moved in unfamiliar ways. Unknown vessel, this is Frontier Station Epsilon. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. The Krell's universal translators struggled for a moment before rendering the message in their own language. Vix Anna glanced at Zeal, who nodded encouragingly. Greetings, Frontier Station Epsilon. Vix Anna began, her voice steady despite her racing hearts. I am Supreme Leader Vix Anna of the Krell. We are refugees seeking a new home. We come in peace and hope for dialogue. There was a long pause, during which Vix Anna could almost feel the tension radiating from her crew. Finally, the alien spoke again. Krell refugees, this is Captain Elena Martins of the United Earth Alliance. We welcome you. Please maintain your current position while we consult with our superiors. The transmission cut off, leaving the Krell in stunned silence. United Earth Alliance, Zeal mused. It seems we've encountered a species called humans. Hours passed as the Krell waited anxiously for a response. Vix Anna used the time to brief her people, preparing them for the possibility of first contact with an alien race. She stressed the importance of peace and diplomacy, knowing that the fate of their entire species might hinge on this interaction. Finally, Captain Martinez's image reappeared on the holographic display. Supreme Leader Vix-Ana, we've received authorization to invite a small delegation aboard our station for further discussions. We hope this will be the beginning of a peaceful and productive relationship between our peoples. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Vix-Ana, along with Zeal and a small group of advisors, boarded a shuttle bound for Frontier Station Epsilon. As they approached, the sheer scale of the structure became apparent. It dwarfed even their city ships, a testament to the technological capabilities of these humans. Docking with the station, the Krell delegation was met by Captain Martinez and a team of human officials. Despite their alien appearance, Vix-Ana could read the mixture of curiosity and apprehension on their faces, emotions that surely mirrored her own. "Welcome aboard Frontier Station Epsilon," Captain Martinez said, attempting what Vix-Ana would later learn was called a smile. "We have much to discuss." The negotiations that followed were complex and often frustrating. The humans, while not openly hostile, were understandably cautious about allowing a large population of aliens to settle in their territory. The Krell, desperate for a home, but unwilling to compromise their autonomy, pushed for concessions. Days stretched into weeks. Vix-Ana found an unlikely ally in Dr. Samira Patel, a xenobiologist who championed the cause of the Krell to her superiors. "Think of the advancements we could make together," Dr. Patel argued during one particularly heated session. "The Krell's bioengineering capabilities far surpass our own. A partnership could revolutionize medicine, agriculture, even space travel." Slowly, painfully, an agreement began to take shape. The humans would allow the Krell to settle on Novus, a recently terraformed planet on the fringes of human space. In exchange, the Krell would share their scientific knowledge and pledge to defend the colony alongside human forces if needed. As Vix-Ana put her mark on the final treaty, she felt a complex mixture of emotions. Relief, certainly, her people would have a home again, but also trepidation about the challenges that lay ahead. "A historic moment," Captain Martinez said, extending her hand in what Vix-Ana had learned was a human gesture of agreement. Vix-Ana grasped the offered hand with her own multi-jointed appendage. "Indeed, may it be the first of many." The journey to Novus took several more months, but for the Krell, it was filled with a renewed sense of purpose. They pored over the information provided by the humans, learning about their new home and the species they would be sharing it with. As they entered Novus's star system, excitement rippled through the fleet. Krell of all ages crowded the observation decks, eager for their first glimpse of their new home. Novus swung into view, a blue-green jewel hanging in space. It wasn't Krella. Nothing ever would be. But it was beautiful in its own right. "Prepare for atmospheric entry," Vix-Ana ordered, her voice thick with emotion. "It's time to make history." The descent was turbulent, but as the clouds parted, the Krell got their first real view of the surface. Vast oceans, sprawling forests, and wide plains stretched out below them. In the distance, the gleaming structures of the human colony reflected the light of the setting sun. As the ships touched down on the designated landing zone, a cheer went up from both the Krell and the assembled humans. Vix-Ana was the first to step onto the soil of Novus, her foot sinking slightly into the soft earth. She turned back to her people, seeing hope and fear in equal measure on their faces. "My fellow Krell," she said, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd, "welcome to our new home." The real work, Vix-Ana knew, was just beginning. Building a new society alongside an alien species would be fraught with challenges. But as she watched Krell and humans cautiously beginning to interact, she allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: optimism. The exodus was over. A new chapter in Krell history was about to begin. Integration and tension. 5 years had passed since the Krell first set foot on Novus. The planet's landscape had transformed, now dotted with a unique blend of human and Krell architecture. Towering bioorganic structures grew alongside sleek human buildings, a visual representation of the two species' attempts at coexistence. In the capital city of New Hope, Vix Anna stood before a mixed crowd of humans and Krell. The occasion was the opening of the first joint species medical research facility, a project that had been years in the making. Today, Vix Anna began, her translator conveying her chirps and clicks into smooth human speech. We celebrate not just the opening of a building, but the fusion of our greatest strengths, human ingenuity and Krell bioengineering, working in harmony to push the boundaries of medical science. As she spoke, Vix Anna caught sight of Dr. Samira Patel in the crowd. The human scientist had become a close friend and ally over the years, tirelessly working to bridge the gap between their species. Samira offered an encouraging nod, her graying hair catching the light of Novus's sun. But even as Vix Anna extolled the virtues of cooperation, she couldn't ignore the undercurrent of tension that had been growing in recent months. Not everyone on Novus shared her vision of a harmonious future. After the ceremony, Vix Anna and Samira walked through the streets of New Hope, their odd pair drawing curious glances from passers-by. "The research facility is a huge step forward," Samira said, her excitement evident. "But Vix Anna, we need to address the rising discontent. The protests are getting larger and more volatile." Vix Anna's antennae drooped slightly. "I know. The purist movement among my people is gaining traction. They fear we're losing our identity, our connection to Krella." "It's not just the Krell," Samira added grimly. "Human extremist groups are spreading propaganda about alien invasion and cultural corruption. They're calling for segregation, even deportation." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion ahead. A group of humans and Krell were engaged in a heated argument, their voices rising above the usual bustle of the street. "Go back to your own planet, Bug," a human man shouted, his face red with anger. "This is our planet now, Smooth Skin," a young Krell retorted, her scales flushing with agitation. Vix Anna moved quickly to intervene, her imposing presence causing the crowd to fall silent. "Enough," she commanded. "This is not who we are, not who we should be." The group dispersed, but the incident left a sour taste in Vix Anna's mouth. It was becoming clear that despite their best efforts, deep-seated fears and prejudices were threatening to tear their fledgling society apart. In the following weeks, Vix Anna and the human colonial government worked tirelessly to address the growing unrest. They implemented new educational programs to foster cross-species understanding, created joint cultural events, and increased funding for collaborative projects. But for every step forward, it seemed they took 2 steps back. A Krell religious ceremony was disrupted by human protesters. Human-owned businesses reported vandalism by Krell youths. The atmosphere in New Hope grew increasingly tense. The situation came to a head during the annual Unity Festival, meant to celebrate the successful integration of their 2 species. As Vix Anna prepared to give her speech, a series of explosions rocked the plaza. Chaos erupted as both humans and Krell fled in panic. Through the smoke and confusion, Vix Anna saw a group of masked figures, both human and Krell, working together to cause more destruction. "Extremists," Samira coughed, helping Vix Anna to her feet. "They're coordinating their attacks." The aftermath of the Unity Festival attack was devastating. Dozens were injured, and the fragile trust between humans and Krell was shattered. In an emergency session of the colonial government, voices clamored for drastic action. "We need to implement strict segregation," argued Councillor Henrik Larsen, his voice heavy with fear and anger. "For the safety of both our peoples." Zeal, now serving as the Krell representative on the council, chittered in disagreement. "Isolation will only breed more fear and misunderstanding. We must stand united against these extremists." The debate raged for hours, with Vix Anna fighting to maintain order and reason. In the end, a compromise was reached. Increased security measures would be implemented, but integration policies would remain in place. As Vixana left the council chambers, exhausted and disheartened, she found Samira waiting for her. "It's not over," Samira said firmly. "We've come too far to give up now." Vixana nodded, drawing strength from her friend's determination. "You're right, but we need to do more than just maintain the status quo. We need to actively bring our people together." Over the next few months, Vixana and Samira spearheaded a series of initiatives aimed at fostering genuine connections between humans and Krell. They established mixed-species community centers, created exchange programs for students, and launched a campaign showcasing successful partnerships between the two races. Slowly, tentatively, the situation began to improve. The extremist groups, while not eliminated, found themselves increasingly marginalized as more and more citizens of Novus embraced the idea of a truly integrated society. One evening, as Vixana watched the twin moons of Novus rise over the city, she reflected on how far they had come, and how far they still had to go. The path to true harmony would be long and difficult, but she was more convinced than ever that it was worth fighting for. Little did she know that an even greater challenge was looming on the horizon, one that would test the bonds between human and Krell like never before, and determine the fate of their shared home. As the moons climbed higher in the sky, casting their pale light over the sleeping city, a faint, unfamiliar signal pulsed at the very edge of Novus's detection grid. Something was coming, something that would change everything. The swarm approaches. The emergency alert jolted Vixana from her meditation chamber. She rushed to the command center, her heart's racing. The room was a flurry of activity, with both human and Krell operators working frantically at their stations. "Report," Vixana demanded, her normally melodious voice sharp with concern. Colonel Sarah Chen, the human military liaison, turned to face her. The colonel's face was grim. "Supreme Leader, our long-range sensors have detected a massive group of objects approaching Novus. They're not responding to hails and are moving at speeds we've never encountered before." Zeal, now serving as Vixana's chief advisor, chittered nervously. Could it be an Earth fleet, or perhaps other Krell who escaped Krella? Colonel Chen shook her head. "Negative. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database. Whatever's coming, it's completely alien to both our species." Vixana's antennae twitched as she processed this information. How long until they reach Novus? "At their current speed, approximately 3 weeks," Chen replied. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Vixana convened an emergency session of the colonial government, where heated debates erupted over how to respond to this potential threat. "We should strike first," argued one human counselor. "Show these aliens we're not to be trifled with." "Caution," countered Zeal. "We know nothing about their capabilities or intentions. A premature attack could be disastrous." In the end, it was decided to put the colony on high alert while attempting to establish communication with the approaching force. Meanwhile, both human and Krell scientists would work around the clock to analyze the incoming data and prepare defensive strategies. As the days passed, tension in New Hope reached a fever pitch. The impending arrival of an unknown alien force had done what years of integration efforts couldn't. It united humans and Krell in a common purpose. Old grievances were set aside as both species worked tirelessly to prepare for whatever was coming. 2 weeks into the crisis, Dr. Samira Patel burst into Vixana's office, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. "Vixana, we've made a breakthrough in analyzing the alien signals. You need to see this." In the main laboratory, Samira pulled up a holographic display. "We've managed to decode some of their transmissions. They're not a single entity, but a collective of some kind. We're calling them the Swarm." The display showed a mass of insectoid creatures, vaguely reminiscent of Earth's ants or Krella's hive dwellers, but on a massive scale. Each individual seemed to be part of a greater whole, linked by some unseen psychic bond. "They're not just passing through," Samira continued, her voice grim. From what we can tell, they consume entire planets, stripping them of resources to fuel their endless expansion. Vix Anna felt a chill run through her body. Have they detected us? Samira nodded solemnly. We believe so. All indications are that Novus is their intended target. The news spread quickly, and panic began to set in among the population. Vix Anna and the human leaders worked tirelessly to maintain order, but fear was a powerful force. In a bold move, Vix Anna called for a public address in New Hope's Central Plaza. As she looked out over the sea of faces, human and Krell alike, she felt the weight of their combined futures on her shoulders. Citizens of Novus, she began, her translator conveying the gravity in her voice. We face a threat unlike any we have encountered before. The swarm approaches, intent on destroying everything we have built together. A murmur of fear rippled through the crowd. But we have something the swarm does not. Vix Anna continued, her voice rising. We have unity. Human and Krell, two species who have learned to work together, to combine our strengths and overcome our differences. This is our home, and we will defend it, together. A cheer went up from the assembled crowd, a roar of defiance that echoed through the city. The following days saw a flurry of activity. Human military tacticians worked alongside Krell strategists to formulate a defense plan. Engineers from both species collaborated on upgrading Novus's planetary shields and weapon systems. Vix Anna found herself working closely with Colonel Chen and Dr. Puddle. The three formed an unlikely but effective leadership trio, each bringing their unique perspectives and strengths to the table. If we can disrupt their psychic link, Samira theorized during one late-night strategy session, we might be able to throw their entire force into disarray. Colonel Chen nodded thoughtfully. And if we combine that with a focused electromagnetic pulse, we could potentially incapacitate a significant portion of their fleet. Vix Anna finished, her antennae quivering with excitement. As the day of the swarm's arrival drew near, a sense of grim determination settled over Novus. Civilians were moved to underground shelters, while a joint human-Krell defense force prepared for battle. In orbit around Novus, a hodgepodge fleet assembled, sleek human battleships flying alongside the organic curves of Krell vessels. It wasn't much compared to the swarm's numbers, but it was all they had. Vix Anna stood on the bridge of the flagship, renamed Unity for this mission. Beside her, Colonel Chen stared intently at the tactical display. Dr. Patel worked feverishly at a console, finalizing the calculations for their disruptive pulse. Contact. A sensor operator shouted, multiple signals dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The view screen lit up with a terrifying sight. Thousands upon thousands of alien ships, each bristling with organic weaponry, filled the space around Novus. At their center, a massive high ship pulsed with malevolent energy. Vix Anna's heart raced, but her voice was steady as she gave the order. All ships, battle stations, for Novus. As the first wave of the swarm surged forward, human and Krell ships moved as one to meet them. The battle for survival had begun, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. The battle for New Hope. The void of space erupted into a dazzling, terrifying spectacle as the combined human-Krell fleet engaged the swarm. Energy beams lanced out from defending ships, while the swarm countered with volleys of organic projectiles that corroded everything they touched. On the bridge of the Unity, Vix Anna watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and horror. Pride in seeing humans and Krell working in perfect synchronization, and horror at the overwhelming numbers of the swarm. Their front line is pushing through Sector 7. Colonel Chen called out, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. Rerouting squadrons to reinforce. Dr. Patel's voice cut through the chaos. The disruptor is charged to 80%. We need to get closer to the high ship for maximum effect. Vix Anna made a split-second decision. Helm, take us in. All power to forward shields. The Unity plunged deeper into the fray, smaller craft providing cover as they made their way towards the pulsating heart of the swarm's fleet. Impacts rocked the ship, but they pressed on. In range, Patel shouted, initiating disruptor pulse now. A wave of invisible energy burst forth from the Unity, washing over the swarm's forces. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, chaos erupted. Swarm ships began to move erratically, colliding with each other or firing wildly into space. The psychic link that bound them had been temporarily severed, leaving them confused and disoriented. All ships, concentrate fire on the hive. Vix Anna ordered. The combined fleet unleashed everything they had on the massive hive ship. Its organic hull buckled and burned under the assault, but it wasn't enough. As the effects of the disruptor pulse began to fade, the swarm regrouped, their numbers still overwhelming. "We fought some time," Chen said grimly, "but they're adapting. The next pulse won't be as effective." Vix Anna's mind raced. They needed something more, something unexpected. Her gaze fell on the planet below, and an idea formed. Desperate, dangerous, but possibly their only chance. "Dr. Patel," she said, her voice tight with urgency, "could we modify Novus's planetary shields to emit a massive version of the disruptor pulse?" Patel's eyes widened. "Theoretically, yes, but the energy required would overload the entire grid. We'd be defenseless, and it would fry every piece of technology on the surface," Chen added. "We'd be set back decades." Vix Anna nodded solemnly. "But we'd have a future to rebuild. Make it happen." As Paddle and her team worked feverishly to reconfigure the planetary shields, the battle in space grew more desperate. The swarm, recovering from the initial shock, pressed their advantage. Ship after ship, both human and Krell, fell to their relentless assault. On the surface of Novus, frantic evacuations were underway. People streamed into ancient Krell bioshelters, structures that could withstand the coming electromagnetic storm. Modification complete, Patel's voice crackled over the comms. "But Vix Anna, someone needs to stay behind to activate it manually. The surge will be lethal." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Vix Anna straightened, her decision made. "I'll do it." "No." Chen and Paddle protested simultaneously. "Our people need a leader to rebuild," Vix Anna said softly. "It must be me." Before anyone could argue further, the ship rocked violently. "Hull breach in sections 3 through 7. An officer shouted. "Get to the escape pods," Vix Anna ordered. "I'll handle this." As the bridge crew reluctantly evacuated, Vix Anna made her way to the teleportation chamber. With a final look at the chaos of battle visible through the viewports, she beamed down to the surface. The streets of New Hope were eerily empty as Vix Anna raced towards the central power facility. In the sky above, flashes of light marked the desperate last stand of the combined fleet. Reaching the facility, Vix Anna interfaced with the main control panel. Her fingers flew over the controls, inputting the final sequence. As she worked, she opened a channel to all frequencies. "People of Novus, human and Krell alike," she began, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "What we built here was more than a colony. It was a dream of two species living and thriving together. Today we fight not just for our lives, but for that dream." She paused, watching as the energy levels climbed to critical levels. "The road ahead will be difficult, but I have faith in you, in us. Rebuild, grow, and always remember, we are stronger together." With those final words, Vix Anna activated the pulse. A blinding light engulfed the planet, radiating outward into space. The swarm ships nearest to Novus went dark instantly, drifting lifelessly. The massive hive ship writhed as if in pain, its psychic network shattered. In orbit, the remaining human and Krell ships seized the moment, concentrating all fire on the now vulnerable hive. Under this final assault, the massive structure began to break apart. As the light faded and the energy pulse dissipated, an eerie silence fell over Novus. Slowly, cautiously, people emerged from their shelters to find a changed world. Every piece of advanced technology was fried, from the simplest communicator to the most complex computer system. But they were alive, and in the sky above, the shattered remnants of the swarm drifted harmlessly. Their threat ended. In the weeks and months that followed, the people of Novus began the long process of rebuilding. It was a daunting task, but one they faced with determination and unity. A year after the battle, a statue was unveiled in the center of New Hope. It depicted Vix Anna, standing tall and proud, with a human child on one side and a Krell child on the other. The plaque read, "In memory of Supreme Leader Vix Anna and all those who gave their lives to defend our home, may we honor their sacrifice by building the future they dreamed of, together." As the sun set on this new Novus, a Krell elder turned to her human counterpart. "We have lost much," she chittered softly. The human nodded, then smiled. "But we have gained something greater. We have truly become one people." And so, on a once distant world, the intertwined legacy of humanity and the Krell continued, a beacon of hope in a vast and sometimes hostile universe.